since Theosophy and Anthroposophy works at developing a healthy relationship with the spiritual world. And many of us who are interested in the sciences or even in the health field are encouraged to spiritualize the teachings that you find in mainstream books and other sources, because they have to keep spirituality out of it. And if you want to put spirituality back into science, into psychology, for example, or biology, chemistry, whatever, that's part of what some of us are called to do. Now, since I'm a psychologist, I will be approaching tonight's talk, which is the challenge of the times and how to prepare for it. I will be approaching it as a psychologist and as a citizen. We are all citizens. Some of us might be psychologists. Some of you might be, and I hope that, well, you could be a teacher, you could be a Swedish massage therapist, you could be all sorts of chiropractors or whatever. If you feel the call for, oh, well, from everywhere, this is a broken world. And if you hear that call from a broken world, then you are already asked, not coerced, but asked to serve in such a way that you help this broken world heal. And one of the things I really liked about the Theosophical Society when I first learned about it was its interest in developing universal brotherhood. Now, brotherhood may bother you because it sounds gender biased, but sisterhood is an entirely different word, different meaning. Sometimes fellowship works as a substitute, but I still use brotherhood in its old meaning, without any connection to just males. It's for universal humanity. Now, if we're going to develop this relationship with the spiritual world, it requires some things. You don't need to become a vegetarian right away. Sooner or later you will. You'll just choose to do so. And there are other things that you may or may not start doing. But one of the things that I hope that you do or will start doing is meditating. And I mean really meditating, not the kind of thing that a lot of people seem to do, but real meditating, the kind that you need to do what the prophet Isaiah and the psalmist earlier said, that you need to be still and know that I am God. Now, you don't get to know about God and so on in the way that we need to from a church or from any institution. You must learn it from direct experience. That's the change that has happened. Early on, for centuries, there was what's called in the mysteries Peter or Petrine Christianity, and that's still going on, but it won't continue for too much longer. And then there was Pauline Christianity, and there are different forms of that. The most difficult form to deal with for me are the Bible bangers that they're as much as what they want to bring you, or anyone, is to the Bible. In Bible church, or Bible study groups, gatherings in the morning, breakfast clubs, groups that study the Bible together. That's what they want to do, bring you to the Bible. And then the earlier Petrine type of Christians want to bring you to the church. Come and join the church. And if you follow the things that the church wants you to do, the church will save you. And then the third phase of Christianity, which is still way out in the future, is Johnian Christianity, or in many places it's called Johannine Christianity, Johnian Christianity. And that isn't so far off that you can't be a pioneer, or you can't be kind of an advanced person or group that is already developing Johnian Christianity. Johnian Christianity wants to bring you to the Christ through direct experience, your own direct experience. So remember, as little children in Sunday school or whatever, you probably heard, Jesus loves me, this I know because the Bible tells me so. That's a Protestant group. The other would be Jesus loves me, this I know because the church tells me so. But now what is needed is the Christ loves you because you know it from your direct experience. And that's what is necessary. And in order to do that, you need to be still. And that means not just a blank look out the window over the kitchen sink, standing there looking out, wishing you were somewhere else or whatever. But it means putting your body to sleep, but keeping your consciousness awake. It's you want to get so that your body really is, so if somebody lifted up your hand and let go, it would just flop down like that. Your body is asleep, but your consciousness is awake. And I want us to start with moving your consciousness around. Put your consciousness way up into the upper part of your head, where you can imagine the crown chakra is. But just put your consciousness there. Or you can just practice one. Put your consciousness down in your right hand. You can move your head right down in there or into your toes. But put it into the upper part of your head, your consciousness right there. Now move your consciousness to just back of the eyes, between the eyebrows. Put your consciousness there. And now move your consciousness to your throat region. That's your thyroid center. And now move your consciousness to your heart center. There in the heart center, you have the lungs, the heart, and the thymus gland, which is key in these days because it's your main organ for your immune system. And the stress and anxiety is so thick in the world that any psychologist knows you could cut it with a knife. It's just heavy in the world. So that's very hard on the thymus gland, overworks it and diminishes your ability to fight off illnesses. So Now with your consciousness up at your crown chakra, use the word "Om" when you're doing this. You don't need to continue doing it, and just drive people crazy in your house, going "Om, Om, Om" all the time. But you could do it, and then if you have to be not bothering other people, you could do it silently. But if you do it out loud, you can feel it vibrating in that spot. See if you can. You might not right away, but see if you can. Have your consciousness right up there in your crown chakra area and be saying the word Om, Om. It vibrates. You can feel it vibrating on your tongue even. And that vibrating in that area is a healthy thing for that chakra region. Now, when you move your consciousness to that spot just behind your eyes, it's where you tap somebody on the forehead when you've been talking to them and say, "Is anyone home?" That's where you hope they are sometimes. Now you use O, O-M. It was A-U-M for Aum. And now you put your consciousness right there and use that verbal expression, O. Now, if you're in a group doing this, I suggest that you start out in unison. Oh, some would be lower, some higher, but in unison. But after a while, become independent and give it the tone that you like best, but one that harmonizes with everybody else. So then it's a beautiful Om that's kind of like a chorus. And then with your thyroid, that's sometimes referred to as your will center. You use the expression hum and get it to vibrate. Move it around so that you're feeling the vibrating in your throat region. And then when you move your consciousness to your heart center, use the verbal expression YAM, Y-A-M. So it's A-U-M, O-M, H-A-M, and Y-A-M. Move it around till it's vibrating in your heart center. And then do that. You can start out jabbering and talking to with the spiritual world and tell them all your difficulties and problems and somebody who's been driving you crazy. You can share all that, but after a bit, stop talking and then be real quiet. It's good, I think, to read widely, like the Bhagavad Gita and the Gospel of John and things like that. But when you're doing your meditating, then eventually stop talking. Now, I'm not saying don't ever talk. You want to bring your frets and worries and deep concerns, maybe about a granddaughter or somebody who's gotten onto drugs or whatever, and bring that to that heart center, and then after you've done that, let it go. It's as if you were a baseball pitcher and you loved the motion of the pitcher so much you just go through it like that, but you wouldn't let go of the ball. And the umpire would, what happened? Where's the ball? And so you do it again and you don't let go of the ball. That's the way some people meditate. They don't let go of it. And they bring their frets and worries into the heart center and offer it up. Here, take this. Lighten my burden so that in my freedom I'm lighter. And let go of it. So that when you go back out through the door of your heart center, you're not taking it with you again, but you let it go. And then continue to sit there in silence. And like I said, it's important now not only to read the Gospel of John and Bhagavad Gita and things like that, but I think it's good to memorize the words of the 23rd Psalm. Remember how that goes? Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Death forces everywhere. I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And then remember where it goes, thou preparest the table before my enemies. What does that mean? It means that what the Christ Jesus said to his disciples when he was giving his farewell address is that there are going to be trials and tribulations and wars and rumors of war. But nevertheless, be of good cheer. Be of good cheer, you say, holy smokes, the world's falling apart. No. No matter what's happening in the world, be of good cheer. Practice that. Thou preparest the table before my enemies. That means that other people who see and observe you, maybe you work in the same office or whatever, meet each other frequently, and they recognize there's something about you that you aren't an ostrich with your head in the ground, not paying attention to anything. You are thoughtful and informed. You know what's going on in Gaza. You know what's going on in other places of the world. And yet you are still cheerful. How can that be? Why aren't you just sad and why aren't you crying like Jesus wept over Jerusalem? Why are you cheerful? But that's what you're encouraged, not commanded, but encouraged to be. Nevertheless, be cheerful, even in the presence of people who are really doom and gloom people. And they wonder how you can know about any of these things and still be cheerful. It's because you have a perspective from your study of theosophy or anthroposophy that gives you a deeper understanding and such a long perspective on things that you can be cheerful in any circumstance. And other people can see your cheerfulness. A lot of people ask, how are you, James? And I said, well, I'm fine, but the world's a mess. It's that way. You'll feel that way. Now, this is a statement from a man who was the leader of the Theosophical group in Germanic-speaking countries for many years, Rudolf Steiner. Listen to what he had to say. This isn't too long, just that long. I'd like to share that with you. He said, the great incisive catastrophic events of our time are symptoms of this wide-ranging, all-encompassing battle, which will inevitably find diverse expression in the near future in conflicts across the globe. This will not be like other previous wars, which concluded with peace, at least temporarily. Things will no longer be as they used to be. There will instead be perpetual conflicts And the only way to view the incisive events of our time is in this broader understanding context that you learn in theosophy and anthroposophy. It is no longer adequate today to think superficially about events and circumstances. We need to plumb the depths, for otherwise nothing much will result from what we undertake. Now, I'm not saying that you should be critical of people that you know who aren't interested in your theosophy or your anthroposophy. They aren't interested in really anything religious or spiritual, and yet you can tell that there's something about them that longs for a relationship with the spiritual world, but they can't do it for some reason yet anyway. So you know from your studies, and if you don't, well, if you're brand new to theosophy or anthroposophy, maybe you don't know some of this stuff yet, but the rest of you would know all this. You know that we are of dual nature. We come into this incarnation or any incarnation of ours with what has been built up by the higher hierarchies, and along with that part of us that has left off everything that was unredeemed, let's say, that was wrong or a shortcoming, a bad shortcoming, bad habits or whatever. You leave those behind after you die, more and more and more until you get to the sun sphere. And by that time, you have left behind everything about you that's not pure, that's not holy. You think, my God, there wouldn't be much left. But that's it. That's where you are at that time. And each lifetime you add with the fruits of your life a little bit more to that part of you. And that is what comes in. And as you're really approaching the earth again, there are spirits, lords of karma, they're referred to, who bring across from after you died over here. Now you've gone up and around, and now you're coming back down to the earth again. They bring across your karma of unfinished stuff, so that you can work on it again and again and again if necessary, and finally work through and rectify your shortcomings. Now, this requires an understanding of how many times, really, you don't need to know the exact number, that you've actually incarnated. How many times during Roman times or Egyptian times or Sumerian times, or back into Atlantis or Lemuria, or even before that. You've been coming and going, and there is a psalm that deals with that, watching over you in your comings and goings, and it's referring to that on a deep esoteric level, and it means that you are coming very often and experiencing the culture at that time, what it was like to live in ancient Greece or in Roman times or Egyptian times or whatever. That is part of what you've been building up in your soul. And anything that you acquire that really has this eternal value to it, Plato would say, is never lost. What you study in theosophy or anthroposophy will never be lost if you absorb it, if you digest it, sort of like food. If you make it a part of what psychologists in the day of William James used to call your Weltanschauung. And you know German know what that your worldview, your Weltanschauung. You add that what you just learned from reading some theosophy or anthroposophy. And you don't just read it intellectually and become a kind of a walking encyclopedia and can spout it off to people who want to learn about it. You make it a living part of your existence. You make it existential. And that will never be lost. You will come again next time around with that as a part of your Weltanschauung, with your worldview. You will already have that with you. Can you imagine? Maybe the last time you weren't so far along, but this time you've been studying like crazy and learning lots of stuff in theosophy or anthroposophy, and you've been actually trying to live your life according to what you've learned. And now, next time, then that'll be a part of it. You'll start out with that already. Can you imagine being 21 again and knowing what you know now? But it's just amazing, and that will become so joyful to you and so consoling in understanding what's going on, because you learn that you can't completely rectify your shortcomings by karma. It's a losing battle, because there are two kinds. You probably learned this language when you were young, but you don't use it anymore. But you may have learned about sins of commission and sins of omission. That which you do and shouldn't have done, or that which you should have done but you didn't do. And lots of times we don't take advantage of opportunities. There are some people who are still stuck back in earlier times, Roman and even the Greek times. The Greeks had a premonition of freedom. And even though they would talk about it, they would end up doing the same thing that they were kind of ending up to do anyway. They hadn't gotten beyond fatalism. But you'll still have friends today when something happens to you who will say, well, it was meant to be. Well, yeah, maybe not. You can work at changing. Now, I was given at some time along the way here an ego. An ego is something that has self-awareness. Other animals, like cows standing in a pasture, have consciousness. We know that not just because we're speculating, but because spiritual science can discover it. And that lets us know that, let's say, a cow standing out there in a pasture isn't saying, "My, isn't this interesting? I'm surrounded by all these flowers in the field, and the birds with their beautiful songs. You know, it's really kind of a great pleasure to be a cow here in this pasture." They do not have that kind of self-awareness. They have consciousness, but not self-awareness. Now, when you took your first course in psychology, may have been in some high schools that have it, or in college, you learn that from the best of established psychology, that there are really two things that shape who you are: heredity and environment. And they had great arguments to support either one of those. And they had people on each side kind of warring with each other. And they spoke about William James, saying his teaching at Harvard was so healing that people who would ordinarily end up in fisticuffs now embrace each other, coming from different perspectives on psychology and human nature. That healing quality was there in his teaching. Now, you know that you could have smiled at somebody, but you didn't. You could have given an encouraging word, an uplifting thought to somebody who's really down and out. There are many times you have opportunities, but you're too busy. Well, maybe you think about it later. I could have said something, but I didn't. And those add up to be far more often than you're doing something really good. Although it's important to do things that are good, because in this particular age that we're in now, that started at about the time of Joan of Arc, started about 1413, and it will continue for 2160 years, because that's how long the ages are in this particular cycle. And so we're about, what, 600 and some years from then, maybe 700 almost. I'm not thinking arithmetically here. You can figure it out yourself from 1413 to now. But it's over 600 years, I think. We're into this age, and very important things happened during the central region of the 2160 years. And so that is happening now. And back in the days of Greece and Rome, the important thing was the search for truth. Truth was really important. And those who were part of the church always talk about heresies because they didn't have the truth. It was so important to have the truth, because the important thing to do at that time was to develop that sense of truth, kind of a scientific attitude about everything with objectivity, so that you aren't putting your own self in there and your own wishes. I wish it were this way, or I wish it were that way. But looking at things the way they are. How many scales are there on this fish? When you count them, you get the exact number or whatever. That kind of a scientific attitude of searching for the truth. That was what was the main thing then. Earlier, it was a search for beauty. And there were places in the world where great beauty was sought and valued. And now, in this age, it's doing the good. Because and maybe you already did when you took your first psychology class, thinking, heredity, yes, important. Environment, yes, important. But even more important, or just as important, is the self as a self-determining agent. I can use my ego to change things about me. I can change my habits. I can change even my temperament, which is hard, but you can do it. You can make changes in your life. Maybe I should call this person more often. Maybe I should visit this person more often. Or whatever it might be. You can make changes so that your ego is an active agent. Little kids will show you that, but they don't understand it. They don't have a conscious awareness that I'm going to try this now and see what happens. They just throw the orange juice out on the floor out of their high chair. And they see the consequence that it brings about, but they didn't plan that one. They it takes a while to really begin to work hard at changing your habits, your desires. Martin Luther was asked by a young novice, how do I keep sexual thoughts from coming into my mind so often? And Martin Luther told this young man, he said, you can't keep birds from flying over your head, but you can keep them from building nests in your hair. Perfect answer. And so if somebody, an acquaintance of yours is saying, oh man, I just can't stop thinking about so-and-so or whatever, my secretary or whatever, but they can use their ego at least to keep from acting out on some of these things. And the interesting thing that you learned was interesting to me, and you learned from your studies of theosophy and anthroposophy, is that something peculiar happened way back in middle of Lemurian times. Lemurian times were very, very long in terms of our calculating now. They didn't think of it in terms of days, weeks, or years, but it was just an enormous span of time. And in the middle of that time, when the Garden of Eden story it takes place, an interesting thing happens that Lucifer, who has great power, a lofty being, had a way of implanting your ego in your desire body. Think of that, ponder on that your ego was implanted in your desire body. Now, that wouldn't have happened if Lucifer and the Luciferic hosts didn't do that. So you identify with I am hungry, I am thirsty, I'm feeling a pain in my foot, I am that I don't want there. I want to get rid of that pain. Your identity is tied up in your desires, and that's something then that you can start working on. You can work on transforming your desire body and asking yourself, where is that coming from? I need a cigarette. And you start going like this, where's my pack of cigarettes? Well, it's a habit that you've developed. You smoked that way during a break for several years on your job, and now you want a cigarette because it's that time. It's just caught up in a part of you that isn't really conscious. Give your kids, let them open a can of pop on a long trip to the lakes, and you don't have to do that more than once or twice, and they will want it by the time they get that far in the car. Where's the pop, Mom? It's just a part of their, I am thirsty, I want pop. It's the I connected right with the desires. Now, once you realize that your I is connected with your desires, you've identified with them. That's part of who you are. I'm hungry. can start working at that. Now, you say, well, why did it happen? Why didn't God prevent that? Certainly the Almighty could have had even more power than a mighty hierarchy being like Lucifer. Why did God allow that? Well, here you have lots of people who will be asking those questions. Smart people, good people who are agonizing philosophically over why is there evil in the world? Why did a good God create a world so full of evil? Did God make a mistake? Or what? How come? And so they're asking these kind of questions. But now with your study of theosophy and anthroposophy, and you've learned about the cycles and the ages and the cycles and the rounds of evolution, you can understand what had to happen, because during the time the round before ours, wisdom was infused into everything, and scientists are just amazed at the wisdom of the body, the wisdom of everything. It's just built right into nature, and it's fun to study biology or other natural sciences because this wisdom is just everywhere. Just incredible how the body works, keeping an acid-base balance and all these kinds of things. And in the round before that, it was strength that was added into everything. Now, not lifting barbells, but strength of character. To help understand what that is. If something was going on, maybe some of you are old enough to have known when lots of young people, college students, were out marching on bridges and stopping traffic and stuff to do something about stopping the war in Vietnam, and whether they were right or wrong in doing that. That's where their intensity was. That's where they were, and their parents were worried that their kids had gone crazy, and why are they doing that? They're out marching, and it'd say, Mom, do you think that's a good thing we're doing there? Using Agent Orange and all sorts of other things. Do you think that's a good thing? Do you think that war should continue, or should it be brought to a stop? And you'd say, well, I agree with you. Well, then why weren't you out marching with us? You didn't have the courage to do it. You didn't have the strength of character to stand up for what you think is right, or whatever. That's what's meant by strength. And then the one now, in this round of cycles and ages, is to infuse everything with love, so that many, many thousands of years from now, when people are studying history and the development of human consciousness, they will say, yes, there's wisdom in everything, and now there's love in everything. Everything is infused with love. What an incredible thing this is. What the divine intent that created this whole world is really something that's working toward a very good goal, and it's bringing it about in ways that superficial people cannot understand. They don't understand the fall of what they call the spirits of darkness. You had to become absolutely free from control by the spiritual world. If you had come incarnated, and you kept controlled completely by the spiritual world, you'd never become a human being. You would never become a Pinocchio. You would become just someone who is on the strings of a puppeteer, the spiritual world as a puppeteer, getting you to do the right thing at the right time. Now you're expected to develop a consciousness that will help you to know better when is the right time to do something. And you can do this. You can make that difference with yourself as an agent when you start to realize. But if you raise your hand at the University of Minnesota and you say, "Yeah, I'm a professor, what about the self as as an agent?" The room will laugh you out of the room that you are just a kindergarten kid. What are you still talking about, the tooth fairy or what here? There isn't such a thing. At a big conference in Kansas City of thousands of psychologists, there was a big sign, a banner that said, human beings need God like a fish needs a bicycle. That was the attitude. And if you brought that up, well, the self as an agent, but you know yourself, see, you know from your own direct experience that you can make a difference. It may be really hard to stop smoking. It may be really hard to stop eating too many caramel rolls in the morning, and you can't get into your bathing suit this year. You know how hard it is, but you can do it. And this is part of the calling that we can hear from a broken world. We're actually, not so far from Easter, so we can use some of the language from that. We can be people of the promise. We can be people who are Easter people in a Good Friday world. We can make a difference. Now, the reason I say this is because only small changes can be made from the top down. You can make some, but they don't last very long, and there are all kinds of side effects. And so we end up repeating over and over again some behavior that we shouldn't be even engaged in. And so it won't come from above in that sense. It won't even come from above in the sense of God going to make you good now. We have to learn how to love in total freedom. You're not coerced. It isn't out of a loving act that you hand over your billfold to a thief on the street in Chicago at night. You're thinking, he's got a gun pointed right at you. That's coerced. But to do loving things without coercion, without being compelled by the spiritual world to do this. But there are spiritual beings that want to call people back to the way they were in the round before this one. They want you to become spiritual, yes, and do the right thing because we are programming you completely to do it. You have no freedom. But to become a human being and not sell your birthright short, you want to understand why it is that when most of you, there may be some certain psychics out here that can see more than what's here. But I'd say most of you, when you look here, you see a piano, you see what is this, podium, you see chairs, you see people, you see that, is that an owl?
It's an owl.
An
Yeah, it's an
owl. You see the computer monitor. That's all you see. And you see cars outside, you see a street, you see trees. That's all you see. And that's on purpose. You are now completely free from any coercion from the spiritual world. That's a necessary state to go through in terms of consciousness. You don't need to stay that way. You learned in your studies that there's such a thing as Kali Yuga. We talked about, you know, the gold age, silver age, the copper age, the bronze age, and the iron age, and so on in the West. But in the East, they have their ages are called yugas. And the Kali Yuga is a 10,000 year period that started in 3101 BCE. And the first 5,000 years, the first half of that Kali Yuga time, is like the curtain is coming down. Prior to that, you were all psychic. You were all clairvoyants. It was part of archaic clairvoyance. A good movie to watch is The Mists of Avalon. Watch that again and see what's happened. When across time now, as it gets closer to our time, fewer and fewer people have that natural psychic ability where they had these visions and so on. And even the ones that do can use it for harm. And that'll be something that you might help an acquaintance who asks, you've been studying theosophy or anthroposophy for a long time, and it's done you a lot of good. Can you help me? And so you give them suggestions on books and music and art and philosophy, to read the good books, the great history philosophies of the world. You can encourage them. You could say, you know, how long has it been since you saw The Sound of Music? Oh, jeepers. 20 years, 30 years? Well, it wouldn't hurt to watch it again. And pay attention to the song that Mother, what she called Mother Superior, when she turns to the window, and people thought she was going to read the riot act to Maria, and she sings that song, you know. Yeah, climb every mountain, forge every stream, follow every rainbow until you find your dream. What kind of a dream? A dream that will need all the love you can give every day of your life for as long as you live. Are you a teacher? You love those kids. Are you a therapist? You have a love for your clients. It's a calling that calls you to give your love all the days of your life for as long as you live. That's an amazing inspiration. Other books and things are also inspiring. Try to figure out what it is that they are like to do. Man, I like watching Gunsmoke. I think I've watched every one so far. And the advantage of getting so old is that you can't remember that you saw them before. You know, it works that way. No, that this long-term perspective that you learn in your study of theosophy or anthroposophy helps you to see these things. Why were these so-called spirits of darkness necessary? To make it so that you aren't a puppet. To make it so that for at least one lifetime, you are not controlled by the puppet strings of the angels or archangels or higher beings. You are acting more and more out of your conscious awareness. And you're moving your ego into your heart center. Now, see, the heart center has to be a balancing agent between the three chakras below it, and the three above it. It has to be the balance. That's why your ego is there with your in your heart center, not in any place else. In the world, there's a quote here from Colossians. Walk in wisdom toward them that are without. They aren't studying what you're studying, and you've learned not to be one of these holier than thou people. You carry your wisdom with humility. You understand that human beings are so complicated under such different circumstances in their own impressions that you can't possibly understand them completely. Therefore, you're told not to judge them adversely. You won't understand them well enough. But you can walk toward them in wisdom, redeeming the time. You can start doing that. Now, you've also learned in your studies that on the inside, inner soul, love is experienced as love. But when your cup runneth over, when it radiates out into the world, it is seen as light. So on the inside, it's experienced as love, but on the outside, it radiates from you as light. And whether you know it or not, you may not discover that you are working with the light workers, and have been for several years without even knowing it. But you're starting to become consciously more and more aware of it. I too can radiate light. And if you notice now, some people can see it. Some people will give you a little signal or something when they see you, because they see the light radiating from you. You will be a light worker in that sense. And when you say the verse that Rudolf Steiner gave to a small group of people who were coming to America to start biodynamic gardening stuff, farming and things, they asked him if he could give them something that they could use here in America. And I had a woman who was a German teacher who met a GI in Germany and married him and came to, of all places, Fargo Moorhead. I thought that's cruel and unusual punishment, but anyway, she did. And she walked into my office one day and she said, Dr. Ulness, here's something you need. And she translated it herself. And you know it. I use it many, many places wherever I go. You know it. May our feelings penetrate to the center of our hearts and seek in love to unite with those who share our goals, not just theosophists, not just other anthroposophists, but any who share your goals. And with the spirits who look down benevolently on our heart's earnest strivings, sending us strength from realms of light as they illuminate our love. Now, what do you mean, realms of light, you say? Well, it's the love of God that's pouring out, and it's experienced as light, radiating through the cosmos. Now, when you were being trained in some lifetimes in the old mysteries, you were trained to experience what they called seeing the sun at midnight. And that meant that you could go out and stand by a big boulder in the shade and see the spiritual light coming right through that boulder. But the physical light didn't.
If you
make it.
want to,
Because it isn't the physical
world
light
around
coming
you,
through your
people
biological
around
senses. That's important.
encourage
here.
them to be
It's-
good
It's
citizens.
to be able to see the spiritual light.
What?
That then
Become good
force
citizens.
through the cosmos.
In your local
Now,
town, local city, local area,
I think that's a good time to
in the
take
county,
a break,
perhaps,
because I'm gonna shift
in the
here
state,
now,
Minnesota, or
get more into
Wisconsin, or
psychology.
wherever,
In the country as a whole and in the world as a whole. And let this expanding circle go out as far as it can. And for some of you, it may get as far as cosmic citizens, becoming aware, not just of the world, but of our neighbors from other planets and other parts of the cosmos. That's going to happen, and some of you will be ready for it. If they say, how? And your answer could be by observing those you think are good citizens. You may have a hard time finding a single person that has all the qualities that you would like to see in a good citizen, but they have some. And then other people have different qualities, and you can think of it as a composite, and you have an idea of what. Yeah, there are people who are good citizens, good librarians in the local library, or whatever. But become a good citizen. Now, apparently, many of our young people have not had a civics course. I would guess you had a civics course of some sort, might have had a different name than that, but you had it. And now apparently they don't anymore. I'm not sure why, but maybe other factors at the school ruled that out, and they do other things. One of the things that really concerns me is that unlike youth groups in other countries where there was a kind of a authoritarian government, here we have something that has taken over almost all the youth. And I'm not just talking about pop music or hip hop. I'm talking about AI, artificial intelligence in robots. And practically every kid is developing or working with or enjoying others that they know work with building these devices. And this is very concerning. And I'm not sure how, if I were a junior high or high school teacher, I would deal with this. And when I talk to people who are retired, they say, I'm so glad I'm not a teacher anymore. I wouldn't know how to deal with it. Now that's a kind of a downside of what's happening to all these kids. But there's an upside in that you know how our social scientists, sociologists have given names to generations, like the baby boomers and this sort of thing. Well, the generation that is just coming in now, and they're not very old, they are going to be different in many ways. And one way in particular you should know about, and it has to do with the future. They will be interested in community. You and I and older folks were so into developing independence. We wanted our own house, our own car, our own lawnmower, our own pickup truck to haul stuff for the garden. and we wouldn't want to change. And that's going to be a little difficult as a challenge for us because we don't want to give that up because we're going to be forced by circumstances to be more involved with community. And in community, you have to sacrifice your more selfish interests. Oh, I got to do this now to please the community. So there's a bridging kind of thing that's available, and that is that there will be some communities that will form where individuals can have their own cabin and maybe have several of those, and then they have a long house, they call it, where they gather together, or you could call it a townhouse, where they get together and have events and so on, and you can participate in that. You could participate in a common kitchen and so on, but you'd also have in your own cabin a refrigerator, a stove, a microwave, and refrigerator, and so on. And so you will. Now your grandkids and the ones that come after them won't care about it. They'll live in a situation where there are a whole bunch, like a dormitory in college, where there you had your own room, and they'll still have their own room, but they'll be together with everyone in that building. That's something that's coming, and that will make a lot of difference in what happens in the world. The interesting thing that you know is that the greatest challenge that we face is the challenge within your own soul. It's the challenge of overcoming every bit of selfishness that you can. You may not be successful in this lifetime, but you can work at it. There is a difference, as you know, in your studies between egoity and egotism. Our ego is so egotistical that we are pretty selfish in many ways. Other beings have individuality. Michael isn't Gabriel, and Gabriel isn't Raphael, and Raphael isn't Uriel. They're all different, and they know they're different. They have ego, but not any selfishness at all. And that's called egoity in those beings. And that's what we need to strive for in our work on ourselves, is to get that ego more and more free from selfishness. It's difficult, and those of us who are older are going to have perhaps the biggest challenge with this. But nevertheless, work at it as much as you can. Now, you were taught as a child a truism to you must lose yourself to find yourself. Now, this is the battle that goes on within you. The way Lucifer was able to get our ego tied right in with our desire body was because the desire body is part of the astral body. And in the astral body is the intellectual soul. And Lucifer was able to help you develop a concept of yourself that is not spiritual. See, you come in with great experience for a long period of time of the spiritual world as a little baby, and each time you pull off to sleep, you're going right back into the soul spiritual world. But as they get a little bit older, they start being taught by their parents and their siblings and their playmates that this is the only reality there is. You can't just hop in this car and take it. It's the neighbor's car, that sort of thing. And it isn't long before you develop an intellectual concept of yourself that is transitional. The trouble is that lots and lots of people growing up in a completely materialistic culture like ours, then tends to extend childhood way into adult years. So they are like adolescents who expect that the adolescent expects, they can just take the car. I need it. You weren't going to use it. I saw the keys on the table, and here are some tools. I'm going to use them for something. They just take and use whatever is there. It belongs to us as a family, and I'm a part of this family, and this is mine too. And so they're 23 and 25, 27, 32. They should be beyond adolescence, but they still act like adolescents. They expect you. They didn't learn how to make it in the world because they're just playing with their games on their smartphone all the time. And they just talk about maybe music, hip hop, and whatever it is, and sports athletes. And those are the heroes, and they don't know how to budget. They don't know how to make it in life. And so by 35, maybe they're married, maybe they have a couple kids, and mom, dad, can we come in? Can we live with you again? And they come in and they sleep there, they eat there, they use the car, they expect you to fill on gasoline and buy the clothes and everything, and they don't even get a job. They sit around and play on their smartphone still. They become couch potatoes and that expect to be treated like they were when they were in high school. When you provided a car and gasoline for it with some spending money, you bought them the clothes and all of that stuff. Now, they didn't learn how to budget for insurance or anything. They just come home and want to live with you again and not even pay you rent. That's a widespread phenomenon that really concerns psychologists and others. Now, to become a community person. Now I'm talking about how this will work in our culture. You could argue, I think pretty easily, that we have a system, a government that is of the corporations, by the corporations, and for the corporations. And that's the reality of it. You can't wish it that it is different. That's the way it is now. But you never have had the false idea that we're going to have that government of the people, by the people, and for the people right away. That's a goal for the future. And we can help the corporation. We don't have to become anti-corporation and bash them and, that sort of thing. Yet we help them to become better, help them become more charitable. We can do that. And to that extent, we will be working with some beings that will be very important for the future. And they're referred to as the Manichaeans. The Manichaeans had to go underground for a long time, but they are now out more. I would say Carl Jung and the Jungians are Manichaeans, and more people that you might know are trying to turn things to good. That's one of your tasks for the future, in preparing for the challenges that are coming, that aren't going to come from above and they're not going to come from below. They're going to come only from your heart horizontally to the heart of the other people and spread across the world horizontally. And we'll do that by working on ourselves and become more willing to work with others, and learn how to tolerate the sacrifices that you have to make of your own selfish interests to benefit the community. And so, if you think of this and you use your head to do some logical thinking, how much does it cost to buy a house in Minneapolis today? 600,000, 800,000, and then you just wouldn't get any really great house. Maybe $1 million or more. Suppose you had 10 people or 100 people who were together, and you said, now, instead of each of us paying almost $1 million for a house, why don't we pay 500,000 for a set of condominiums that are closed down because the police have finally rid it of drug dealers, and it's just standing there unoccupied. A lot of damage in there, and all the painting needs to be done and so on. But you could all agree, well, I can paint, I can do carpentry work, we could fix this up and it wouldn't cost us much. But if you need a pickup, they're $59,000. And if all 10 of you need pickups, how much is that? It's just outrageous. Whereas if you have a community, and here's where I'm suggesting, but not making it a hard suggestion, that you consider churches like this one, perhaps, and join it and become members of it. Now, maybe you won't get anything out of the Sunday sermon. It's probably Church 101 every Sunday, year after year. But it's serving some people that way because they still show up. But you maybe don't get anything out of it. But nevertheless, you could go down in the basement or to Fellowship Hall, where they have coffee and cookies afterwards, and get into conversations with others. And you can agree that how about if we take some of the church, some of the money that we can contribute to it and buy a pickup. And people can sign up for the pickup. I need a pickup on next Saturday to haul a whole bunch of bags of organic soil for my garden, and run to Menards or someplace to get it. You don't need to buy a pickup. You only need one pickup for the whole group. But if your group gets too big and too many people want to pick up on Saturday, well, then get 2 pickups or 3, and as many as you need, depending on the size of your group. But this way you can afford to live in a future where the costs are going to go up, skyrocketing into the future where you cannot afford to have all that yourself, each one of you. So that's why I say it's so important that this new group of young people will be labeled by social psychologists and sociologists as community oriented. I don't know, they'll have a better name than that, but they won't be so individualistic. Now, it could be that many of those went through a lifetime like ours is right now, and then they're born again, and they don't have to go through this again, where we each had all the stuff. And see, our kids, you spend a lifetime getting better and better appliances, better, washer, dryer, and all that stuff, and furniture. And the kids grow up in all of that you've accumulated. They're used to all this nice stuff, and they want it right away when they're married. They don't want to spend the next 15 years accumulating it slowly like you did. They want it right away. And if they can't have it, they'll use a credit card and run two or three of them up to $20,000 a piece, just to get those things. They if they don't learn from this lifetime that there is a disadvantage to having everything yourself, that's going to be taken care of. No, not everything is done for us by the spiritual world, but some things are done as a help. And one of the things is that the cost of living will go up so high you can't afford to buy a pickup. And you can't afford to even get a new washer and dryer, because now you go in to get one and it'll be $42,000. Yeah, really. How am I going to buy that? Well, several of you could buy it and use it in the community. The community, it'll be one of the things in the future then that will help people develop community. And in your work at community development, work to get people who have different interests. Some people might be really, really good at astrology. Some people at numerology. Some people with the Enneagram. Some people might really be informed on nutrition and supplements and planting, companion plants, and all sorts of things, way beyond what you'd have time to study all that. But in a group, this is what St. Paul said, some can do this, some can do that, and some can do something else. And together, it encourages you to form a community. So you'll be able to find out from somebody right in your place, and maybe even in that longhouse where you can all gather. You can have somebody that's teach us at least something about astrology, so we don't have time to become astrologers. If we'd started when we were 13, we might make it, but we just don't have time to do that. But you do know, you really understand it. Teach us just enough so that we can understand astrologers when they say something, and then other people can teach you about nutrition and what's really important, why you need some magnesium, why you need some zinc, and so on. You can have that kind of community, and that be one of the ways to meet the challenge of the times and the changing times. Now, when you're talking to people then about their civics, their involvement as citizens, you say, okay, since you were little, you as a citizen of this country said, either in school or before ball games, you said the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which this stands. Do you know what a republic is? Well, I have no idea. They didn't tell us at school. Well, look it up in Wikipedia. What is a republic? And you'll find out. Whoa, geez, that's important to know. Well, yeah, it's a good thing you started to learn about that. What's autocracy? I don't know. Ask Wikipedia. Wikipedia is pretty smart. It's sort of exoskeletal brain. Ask Wikipedia. What's an autocracy? What would happen? Yeah, how does it differ from a democracy? And so on. Now, one way that anarchists and some of the Tea Party people were, I think, anarchists, not all of them maybe, but some of them, anyone who is an anarchist, or ones who do not want America to be a republic, is using the principle, the last half of this principle: united they stand, divided they fall. So let's work at dividing them, get them divided racially and so on. And so they will fall. And that's the way it'll fall from the inside, not from a foreign country invading, but by dividing us up. And we've been really polarized. Think of it as putting a B-U-T, before divided in the second half of that principle. So you say, united they stand, but divided they fall. And then use that principle to tear this country down. Because for some reason, anarchists do not want to, they just want to take things down. And we'll never be able to have a great, good society by just destroying, taking things down. We also need to build things up. And I make no excuse for saying that what I want, and I hope you want, is a government by the people, for the people, and of the people. Now, see, there's all these extended adolescents who expect something like their parents, who paid for the rent and the food and the car and all that sort of stuff, somehow to be given to us so that we can just have it. And so we don't want to pay any taxes, but taxes are the way that human beings can become a government of the people and by the people and for the people. We have to pay for it ourselves. Nobody else is going to pay for it. Now, there are some things we could do, though, that help out, and that is that sovereign doesn't have to be a nation, but sovereign units of countries can print money. Minnesota could do that. Minnesota is a sovereign state. It could print money, and it could give every single person who's a citizen of this country X amount of dollars that would pay for the basics of living: food, clothing, housing. And if they want more than that, get a job and earn more. But this would be given, this is Minnesota money, and it would be recognized by merchants that, yeah, this is Minnesota money. Other people will accept it in exchange for other things. So you don't have to bring in, 2 chickens to get a bag of potatoes. Money is important as a means of exchange. As theosophists and anthroposophists, we know that the spirits of darkness who were allowed, that is Mammon, well, say Ahriman, and his sidekick, Mammon. And that old saying that money is the root of all evil. Well, that's sort of true. People won't do what they think that they should do because they'll lose their job. Then how would you pay for the monthly rent and so on? So that's really important to understand how Mammon is working along with Ahriman. Now, Ahriman is doing a service for the higher spiritual world, the divine intent. And you know what intentions are. You intend to build a birdhouse for your grandkid, to attract hummingbirds, or you have an intention to do something, and then magnify that to a divine level, that the divine intention is still operating in the world, and eventually it will arrive at love being infused into everything because you're helping to do it. The Knights Templar are going to be of real help. And that would be too big of a topic to take up tonight. So I thought I'd show you this. This is a lecture by Rudolf Steiner, The Templars. Way too complicated to do in a single talk. The Templars, lecture by Rudolf Steiner. And the present and the future Manichaeans. And I mentioned that a lot of Jungians, that's Carl Jung, J-U-N-G, the psychology of Carl Jung is so important in understanding what's going on. When some of the rank of the 9 ranks of spiritual beings, hierarchies of beings above us, some of the 6th ranks, the exousiai, are called the Elohim. And the Elohim are both masculine and feminine. Not some are masculine and some are feminine, but people who translated into English or other languages didn't understand any of the depth esoterics. So they take that to mean that these gods let us create humans in our own image, created a bunch of men and a bunch of women, men and women. No, it's hyphenated. These beings are masculine hyphen feminine. And I remember Michael speaking to a group of us in Austin, Texas, where he said, "You who deem yourself as masculine, make yourself more feminine. You who deem yourself feminine, make yourself more masculine. Work at balancing those in your own life. And because you are created both." Now, the fact that you incarnate biologically toward one or the other gender, you feel a sense not only of separateness. I'm separate from the spiritual world, I'm separate from everybody because I've got this strong sense of individuality. That's me. These are my shoes. This is my car. This sense of separation is so strong in us that it's difficult to develop a sense of commitment to anyone else or any group. Now, if you are one who sees that people are both masculine and feminine, like Carl Jung, he saw that since we are created both, but are biologically lopsided, one toward the other, we need to find somebody out here that can represent my inner femininity. And so he called them, every shop, every home had a coat rack standing, by the door, a coat and hat rack. Okay, Carl Jung called other people good hat racks for if you're a male, anima to be projected onto. So she is your other half. And even in talking with you, you make me feel so complete. I'd be feeling really incomplete without you. See, he's found his other half, sort of, by finding her. And some people will be more apt to attract that anima projection than others. And the ones that do, then he is referred to as anima racks. And see, now this works in more ways than one. Now you want that other half. You want to find that and learn how to relate to it. And by learning how to relate with a woman, and you are, if lesbian, another woman, but you are, let's say, more masculine, so your masculine side, not your feminine side, does the same thing with her. And so this doesn't mean that you have to be straight then in your life. And Carl Jung worried about this. He said, this won't be too long before people will start to look more difficult to tell whether they're masculine or feminine. And they won't need to find a partner out there in the world to be the second half of themselves. They will do that within themselves. And then there won't be families. And family has been the central unit, the key fundamental unit of life. Even in tribes and clans, the family was the unit for millions of years. And he worried then that what will happen to our civilization if more and more and more people are able to find that balance within themselves. Now, the Manichaeans are ones then who will become more and more expert at working with the shadow and working with things that are not very good, that are wrong, and maybe even evil, and transform them into something good. That'll be their work, and they'll be good at it. And they will help us deal with the challenges of today. This won't come from government. It'll come from people who are Manichaeans. Then, you know from your studies that there was a school for centuries, not so long ago, anyway, in the heavens, that was called the School of Michael. Now, Sophia, Isis, is the maternal matrix of reality. And that's why we call this material matter. It has the feminine matrix. And Isis or Sophia is that great wisdom of all things, the matrix of everything that there is. And Michael is a server to Isis, to Sophia, to distribute this cosmic wisdom that she has. So he plays a really important role. And Michael will be helping us in the future. He's already helping us. But Michael has a peculiarity. He won't do it for you. You have to get started. You have to take this foot and that foot and take a few steps in the right direction. You don't have to go all halfway. It was a person I knew, her father had quite a lot of money, and he would go to some party or something, and he would say, well, let's bring a gift. You bring a rabbit and I'll bring a deer. That kind of thing. It doesn't have to be equal amount. But so you have to start. You have to get involved in doing what you think is right. And then Michael will empower you with that wisdom and strength to do it with a power that you do not have yourself. Now, you know that your presumptuous, or well, not presumptuous, that's a wrong word, your transitional sense of self that you have picked up then by the time you're school age, and you keep building it up, that where you believe that this material world and all its things is reality. That's reality. Uh, you will discover that as you do more meditating in the way you put your body to sleep and keep your consciousness awake, your dreams will change and quite remarkably, and you will be conscious more and more and more of the night till finally you're conscious all night long. That may take quite a while, but you'll be in that working in that direction, and you'll notice it already. You might say I'm quite awake a lot of the night, and I'm not restless. I'm not tossing and turning, and that's a great time to meditate, commune with the spiritual world. Learn to connect with those who are so-called dead. Learn to work with people who are invisible to ordinary people. But you get to know them so well you can work together, whether they're in the body or not. That's the big changes that you will experience in this lifetime. You can, at least. You don't have to, but you could. You will have those remarkable changes. Now, when it looked like everything was going too well for spirituality, starting in the 60s, let's say at least the last part of the 60s and 70s, spirituality was talked about everywhere. You could go into almost any store and there was a rack of books that had lots of spirituality books. You could find them everywhere. That would never have been the case when your grandparents were growing up, but it's happened in your lifetime. Spirituality was being talked about everywhere. And I wondered, because Jung was such an influence on me, that I thought people would have to be middle-aged by the time they would really get interested in spirituality, at least in their 30s. And I wondered if these 18 and 22-year-old college kids would have any interest in it. So I offered a course on psychology and religion, not psychology of religion, and just explain away religion. And lots of students signed up for it. And people who were college students, they were outsiders. And they came and joined the course, or sat in on it. And it was a clear indication to me that they were really interested. And I asked many students, why did you get interested in spirituality? Oh, my mother always read some of Edgar Cayce to us, or something along that line. So this school of Michael for centuries that had lots of human souls and also some angels and other beings as sort of students in that school, then for humans incarnated now, and because you were in that school, you didn't have to hear very much of anthroposophy or theosophy to know that I know that knowledge. I don't know in those words, but there's some I know that it speaks to me right down to my bones. That's because you were in that school. Now, because spirituality was moving so fast, and the spirits of hindrance and the hosts of Ahriman then were assigned to slow things down and not make it so that it's sort of real quick. Like you pay for $4,000 and much today, but back in the days when that was quite a bit of money, you could pay $4,000 and go out to California for a weekend and come back as a master. And that's what people want. Instant, won't do this in a hurry. uh, that it's supposed to be gradual. And these beings then of hindrance um, work together with Ahriman and the Ahrimanic hosts to develop a kind of a school of Ahriman that's subterranean rather than in the heavens, and produce AI and robotics and all of this stuff, and which can be turned to good. It can be turned to real good. Now, you have so many people, especially young, undereducated, but smart uh, uh, individuals, mostly males, um, who are afraid of immigrants because they'll take our jobs. And when I hear people say that about immigrants, it's, oh, I didn't know you were American Indian. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm not. Are you Cherokee? What are you? No, no, you are an immigrant or the son or a daughter. Or, my grandparents came over on a boat from Norway. You don't have to go back very far. We're all immigrants practically. And so they're worried about immigrants taking their jobs. But what they don't know, because they aren't become thoughtful and informed enough, is that robotics will replace more jobs than any immigrants will ever. There are many, many places now where they don't have waiters anymore. It's all done by robots. And that will scare a lot of undereducated people now who hate immigrants. It isn't the immigrants. It'll be these robots. Now, the Manichaeans now can help turn those to good. So the school of Ahriman will continue to be working to counter what souls learned in the school of Michael. And we will be guided by some very significant individuals. The Templars I mentioned, and the original Manichaeans, and Mani himself will be guided by an individual who was the first individual who was initiated outside of the ancient mysteries, and that was Lazarus. And Lazarus was given a new name, just like some of your acquaintances who go over to India or someplace, and they come back with a different name that their guru gave them. Well, this Lazarus then got the name of John, and he was the writer of the Gospel of John. And John, in his future incarnations, will be guiding us towards this Johnian religion, which is love one another, love your neighbor, love your strangers, love even your enemies, love one another. And that will be one of the great leaders of humanity. Another great leader is the one who will replace the Gautama Buddha as the next Buddha. And for 5,000 years, this being will incarnate somewhere on the planet, almost every century, as a bodhisattva. And he's the Maitreya Bodhisattva. And then at the end of that 5,000 years, he will become the Maitreya Buddha and be the next Buddha then. And this Maitreya Bodhisattva will be a powerful instrument. Here it talked about Christ consciousness. This Maitreya Buddha will be teaching so powerfully that he'll be referred to as someone with elemental power, someone like the windstorms or the weather. He will when he speaks, it will make people faint even because they just have never heard something so powerful and so inviting to answer the call to be a server for the good. So you will become light workers, whether you know it or not, for a long time, because you'll be radiating love, and you will be guided by these great teachers of humanity. Uh, and even if it's true, and there's a lot of people wondering if it is, a lot of anthroposophists at least, Rudolf Steiner was asked by a close associate, when are you going to come back and continue your work? And he said, in 80 years, which would have made him then in 1902. In America, what if that's true? Now, he has also said that you should not begin major esoteric teaching until you're 40. So that'd be 18 years from now. You wonder where he is. Probably a high school kid, a college kid. And what he'll be doing then when he turns 40. Just 18 years from now. You may still be alive. At least your children and grandchildren will be. And just think of being present in a world where there's a teacher like that. He gave 6,000 lectures. Just incredible. A high level initiative. So he'll be one of our teachers. Now, I suggest that, oh jeepers, oh man, it's way past
Oh,
time.
yeah, it is, yeah.
Time has gone by so fast.
Blue, yeah.
I should say something because it's so important. There's a concept in psychology that's called cognitive dissonance. Now, it got that name because at first it was between two truths that were opposite, and you carry them together.
Yeah.
But then it extended to emotions and actions. If your behavior doesn't square with your thoughts, that produces cognitive dissonance. We turn that to good, as Manichaeans would. How? You cannot legislate against people's attitudes, but you can legislate against discriminative behavior. You must serve people of other color skin in your restaurant. And if you don't, you're going to be closed down or fined. Ooh, that produces a cognitive dissonance in the manager, the owner of that shop. And that has made great changes in transportation. Buses have ways to get people in wheelchairs on, and all sorts of ramps are built. And all sorts of things are done because we're using cognitive dissonance for good. Cognitive dissonance works where people project out not only the anima onto a feminine person, but other aspects of oneself. Males, white males, undereducated, there are others, but I suppose white males are the majority, project out onto someone, a real man, and who can get by. See, the ego, the ordinary ego of the mortal self has a task of trying to get what I desire without getting into trouble with the law or with authority figures or get spanked by my parents or whatever. So I get to be pretty good at and clever at getting what I want. And I see somebody with great power, and if you have a lot of money, that helps, who can kind of get what he wants. That's what I want. That's my image. That's what I want to be like, but I don't dare. I don't dare to do that in school, or anywhere. But when an authority figure, a county sheriff, or a governor, of a state, can act this way and get by with it. That's what I'd like to get by with, these things I want to do, but don't dare. So there's that appeal because of cognitive dissonance. I would like to be that way, but I can't be. And there's someone who is. And women can, some women, especially if you go back some generations, where their idea, and it's still this way for some, they want a real man. Watch Gunsmoke and see some of these people. They want a real man. And if they find somebody who dares to be a real man, boy, they project that right out onto that. Wow, I love that person. I just love that person. So you see how this works. I could go on and on with this. It's so fun to have psychology to help here, but you want to encourage someone who talks to you. Well, how can I change? Where you say, okay, you aren't going to read Edgar Cayce, you're not going to read Alice Bailey, you're not going to read Rudolf Steiner. I know that, but you could, in your busyness, in your work, strive to be nicer, kinder, and wiser. If that's all you accomplish in this lifetime, you will be so different next time around that it's worth doing. Become nicer, kinder, and wiser. And you can help them to, and you can do this too. We ought to do this. When we are suppressing or repressing, is worse, but at least suppressing our playful child when we were little. You get to do that all the time. The adults don't care. You can dress up and all the, wear, these clothes you found in a cedar chest. You could play all these interesting, fun things as kids. But when you grow up, you're expected not to be childish anymore. So you suppress it. You push it down, and you won't allow yourself to do that. This is really harmful. Develop your playfulness. Become more playful. Be discreet about it. When you're at work and you have an important job, maybe you're a school teacher or whatever. You can't just be playing, fun games as kids. But you still can find ways to be really, really, really imaginative and fun. So develop that your childhood. Develop also a sense of wonder, a sense of amazement. And that could be in nature. You could go to the Grand Canyon for the first time and just, wow, Colorado River did this. Whew, this is amazing. Let yourself be amazed find that sense of wonder again, like you had when you were younger, and let it develop. And then there's an important thing to develop, and that is not empathy. You should develop empathy and not just sympathy. If you're any kind of a helper, a teacher, a therapist, whatever, you do want empathy, but empathy by itself is not enough. You have to combine empathy with compassion. And when you combine empathy and compassion in yourself, you will begin to have miracle working power that you never realized that you could do. Because the spiritual world then can work through you, where they say, you know, I am the vine and you're just the branches. You don't produce the apples, that comes from the vine. This power of the vine then can work through you as a branch to do miracle work in the world that will surprise even yourself. And then thirdly, to develop conscience, more and more, a sense of responsibility that goes way beyond ordinary responsibility to a deep responsibility. And that will change the world. And if you become that way, and someone else becomes that way, and then another person becomes that way, pretty soon horizontally, we change this world. And that's the way we're going to meet the challenge of the future.